Jim, thank you for joining us on this DB&N Good Business podcast.
It's great to see you here, Drew. I'm glad to invite you into Dicksons.
Thanks. Look, we believe that people are at the heart of good business, so we want to hear more about you. Tell us about your own journey to where you are now.
Okay. Well, the motor trade's my second career. I started my life in the RAF, in air traffic control, and spent 12 years in the RAF. And then got moved around so much I decided that's enough. I want to buy a house, want to settle down, and decided to get into sales of some sort. I ended up, for my sins, going into an insurance background for maybe a year or so, and then moved in as a salesman down in Dundee in the motor trade. And within a year or two, my boss down there brought me up to Inverness, to Dicksons, wanted me to run the Honda site, which we had then in 1998. And I ran the Honda site as a sales manager here. And for the last 25 years, I've been at Dicksons, and for my sins, I've been promoted up into the directors, as a sales director here at Dicksons.
Who or what? I mean, we're sitting talking to you behind and behind you is a quote from Napoleon Hill, the business guru, saying about whatever the mind can conceive and believe it can achieve.
Yeah.
What has influenced you most during your career? Who's been your inspiration?
Well, certainly in the motor trade, Alistair Scrimgeour, our chairman, who's been my boss since I arrived here, has always made sure that we promote within the business. And in my RAF career, I obviously progressed, but when I came into the business here as a salesman, I made it quite clear I didn't want to sell cars on the floor forever. And he quickly made it clear to me that, as long as I got my head down, worked hard, I'd get some promotions within the business. And I was driven really, I had a young family at the time, I was driven really to make sure I could provide for my family. And I was driven to try and get more involved in the business side of things here, and went from management into obviously covering all four of the brands here. So yeah, that's what's driven me.
And as sales director now, what motivates you most in the business at Dicksons?
Here now? I think I'm in the twilight of my career now. I'm getting on. I've probably got 6 or 7 years left. But we have a new managing director who's come in, Fraser Bryce, and he's 10 years younger than me. And what motivates me now is we've got 60 odd staff members within the business, all Dicksons people, and it's taken quite a long time to get that. But we now have really virtually all of them are Dicksons people. They really want to work for the business. What motivates me is to see them with their young families and see them bring up their families within the business in the Highlands, not have to move away to find that kind of life. And I'm enjoying watching these people develop and come up behind me, if you like. So that's the motivation.
The title of this episode of the Good Business podcast is Good Business, Independent Thinking. So tell us a bit about what it's like being an independent business in a sector that's dominated by national brands.
Okay, well that's one of the reasons I moved to Inverness. When I originally started in the motor trade, I worked for a company that had many franchises down in Dundee. And what appealed to me was I'd have one boss, he owned the company and we were independent. And I think the big thing that's made a difference for us over the years is we can make changes very, very quickly. So we have a board of 2 or 3 directors, but we can make changes in 10 minutes and move the business forward or fix things very quickly. And I think that's the joy of being an independent business. We don't have layers to go through to make decisions.
But it must be challenging not to get crowded out by national marketing. It must take independent thinking to compete. How do you tackle that?
Yeah, I think that's right. And I think in the early days in the motor trade, everything was, we advertised through the newspaper and press. It was difficult then because some of the larger companies had a much larger budget than me and could, plaster the papers with adverts. Things have changed dramatically over the last 10 years. And I was lucky enough to get into the digital world quite early on. I went on a course out with the motor trade that taught me about AdWords and Google, etc., etc. And then now we, with our budget, which is still fairly high, but nowhere near the size of the national companies, and we're able to compete now locally because we can pinpoint our market through digital advertising, and that's made a huge difference to us.
Yeah, Jim, tell us, what challenges has the business had to overcome to stay as successful as it is today? What was the hardest part of that challenge?
Well, it seems to happen in 10-year runs. So I joined 1998. 2008, as you all know, we had the massive recession. And the biggest challenge there was what really mattered to us was to hold on to our staff if we possibly could. And there was a massive redundancies in the UK because of the recession then. We managed to keep most of our staff on board by either freezing wages or making some people part-time rather than losing them, trying to keep them with us. But definitely in that time, that was the hardest challenge. We had to make some redundancies. And a lot of our staff are friends. You know, my staff, we know our staff very, very well. And to sit opposite someone who you know really, really well and tell them they're going to lose their job because the company can't sustain the wage bill was very hard. Yeah. So that was definitely one of the challenges. We got through that, and we actually managed to re-employ some of these people in 2010 and so on. Obviously, lately, we all know what the challenge has been in the last 2 years. We won't say that. Well, we will say the word, but you know, COVID's created a serious problem. Yeah. But we were able, again, because we're independent, to embrace it. And what we did, we had to shut the showrooms, but we quickly realised that we could sell cars online. And with my digital partners, Techland, and one or two other people that we use, we adapted our website quickly, and we're able to talk to people in the Highlands and sell cars to them immediately online. And actually what it's done is it's brought our digital side of the marketing forward probably by 5 years, because we had to rush into getting it all ready and able to deal with what was going on.
You talked about the staff, and I wanted to talk about your team in more detail a little bit later on, but how important is it that your team are invested in the business's vision, its goals as it's going forward?
Well, it's vital. You can see behind me what we think, and we have a sales meeting in here every morning at 8:30. Regardless, doesn't matter what we're doing, we may have nothing to say, but it's important if someone has an issue, has a problem, if we have issues between members of staff, because they're human beings, we like to find out very, very quickly. And regard the investment, I think to a man now, right down to, and not down to, because the valeting team are every bit as important as the people that sell the cars and service the cars. I think now we're very lucky the staff buy into the Dicksons philosophy and realise that working for a family business has lots of advantages. So yeah, it's important they understand. We in a sense, we profit share. We try and bonus the staff on the basis of where we get to, and that's a form of profit sharing, and that goes right down to, you know, small bonuses for some of the other admin side, etc. So yeah, we try very hard to get them invested into the company and see what we're trying to do. Nothing is hidden. This room, you might not see it all, but we've got things written all over the place here. People can walk in here and read what we're attempting to do. If we have future plans, we don't hide it. If we can possibly tell the staff without upsetting someone outside, we'll make sure our staff are the first to know that we have future plans.
Yeah, I can agree with that. Having come in and have a look, you can see that it's very clear that you're very open about what you're doing, sales figures, all the rest of it on there. It is a different business. You mentioned that, you know, it's a kind of family business, a different approach. Tell us something interesting that people wouldn't necessarily know about this business.
I think one of the things is Dicksons is quite a well-known name, and a lot of people associate us with Dicksons. There's a Dicksons in Perth, for example. So the company, this may be a bit boring, but it's the only thing I can think of that might do it. The company started off with a chap called Tommy Dickson down in the Perth area, and actually Alistair Scrimgeour, our chairman, bought the northern side of the company out up here, and so we kept the name Dicksons, but we're actually totally separate from the Dicksons in the central belt, if that makes sense. And one of the things we get quite a lot of is people, can I just get a car delivered to your site down in Perth? We're nothing to do with that, Dicksons. So yeah, people aren't aware that we are solely in Inverness now, and we're trying to keep everything in this area down in the Cars. We could spread our wings and buy properties up in the other parts of town where the other motor dealers are, but what we've realised this side and down the Merkinch of Inverness side of the area needs this. They need a boost in the area and for jobs, etc.
People that have never seen the cars where you're based at the moment wouldn't know that the building we're in just now is one dealership, but there's a number of other dealerships, different brands of cars that you've got spread around this footprint, different buildings with different dealerships.
We've kept them all within, so that we can keep the admin part of the business and myself and Fraser and so on within a walking distance of everywhere. All our businesses, we've got 4 or 5 buildings round about us now. Yeah. They're all within a 2-minute walk, and it's quite important that we make sure that we are physically in these buildings every day, so people don't lose touch of who we are and what we do.
Talking about every day, what are the biggest challenges facing your business right now?
Biggest challenges at the moment is we are expanding, and we financially can do that. Biggest challenge is now finding places to expand, and we want to remain here, so we really don't want to just take any old part of town and build a site. So what we're trying to do is expand the business but within this area, and obviously that's limited for us. Fraser Bryce, our MD, is very much let's get it done type of chat. And what we're doing now is looking at expanding, maybe taking on another couple of franchises in the next year or two. Yeah. And our biggest challenge now is where do we put them? And we need them or want them to be, again, within a 5-minute walk of here. So that's a challenge. Other challenges, we're obviously never sure what's going on in the motor industry just now with semiconductors, problems in manufacturing. A challenge right now is we are ordering vehicles from our manufacturers and we won't get them for 5, 6 months, 7 months, 8 months.
So you've got that expectation management thing to deal with.
People don't realise, in a sales teams are paid on commission. We pay them a basic salary, of course, but the top up that pays for the little bits and pieces comes from commission. So we have to decide, well, do we pay these guys on order and suffer the consequences that we haven't been paid for the car yet, but make sure they're comfortable, and of course we would do that. So there are challenges there to keep your staff on board and keep them motivated when they're selling cars and can't get them for 8 months. Yeah. It's quite a challenge, and keeping the customers on board. So yeah, the semiconductor problem at the moment in the world is a big challenge for us.
So how do you continue to learn things, to stay on top of the changes to deliver for your customers?
Yeah, I've always been a believer of getting information out with the motor trade. So again, when we go back 8-10 years, I went and took courses with a company called Sewell's down in the north of England, and learned quite a bit about the way the internet worked. There's a couple of people, I won't name names, but people that I'm interested in that are public speakers. Yeah. I like to get out and listen to them out with the motor trade, and I think that's how we keep a wee bit ahead of the game. We're not just waiting for things to happen within the motor trade, we're finding out what's happening out there. And again, I'm fortunate I'm able to come to my chairman and say, I'd like to change some things, boss, and he'll turn around and say, do it, Jim. If you make a mistake, if it's a mistake, it's a mistake, but go and do it. Let's just change what we do, change the direction, and that's where I get the inspiration, out with the motor trade.
And how's the pandemic changed your thinking on how you're engaging with customers now?
Yeah, we were very aware, more so for the staff, to be honest. The customers, of course, but our staff probably were the people we had to make sure were taken care of first. So when we brought staff back into the business, of course, we had social distancing measures put in place, we had all sorts of signage within the building, we had screens put up for our staff and customers. So we were very aware we had to make sure there was a physical presence within the business that was showing the customers that we cared that everyone was safe. We still get that now, of course, because it continues. It's eased slightly because we don't have to go and set an order around the business and so on. We're lucky we have large buildings so we can have people there. So yeah, I think that the pandemic has made us realise that people do have a concern about their health. And it was easy for us as business people to think, let's just crack on, let's try and make the business work, and forget that, so-and-so within their families, they don't want to come to work right now because they realise they're putting the rest of their family at risk. So we were very open-minded and allowed the staff to come back in stages, or the ones that could work from home, not many in this business unfortunately, but the ones that could work from home could work from home. So it opened my eyes into, there's a human element within the business we need to look after, and that was our main concern.
You were talking earlier about the challenges of making differences to how you market your business. How important is marketing to your business, and how do you decide how to go about that?
Well, I'm the marketing department, so I'm not only the sales director of the business, I look after the marketing. I'm lucky I've got partners like Techland, who I mentioned earlier.
The buck stops with you, yes.
But on the marketing.
Yeah,
but again, I'm lucky we can change things. Again, with this digital age, you have to change things hourly. So we now, I would assume within a larger company, they have to go through stages. An email goes to so-and-so, clears it, we get it up online, we put it on our website. Now we can clearly put stuff straight onto our website, information on our website within 10 minutes. And I think that's important now, the way things are. People expect that. Regarding response rate to customers, we get many inquiries overnight now, for example.
I wanted to ask you about how important that has been about connecting more with your customers online.
Vital. It used to be someone, not just for, and we're forgetting the servicing side here, but servicing is very, very important as well. But in the old days, someone would come down to a motor site, walk around a load of cars, have a look at them, pick a car, or get a salesman, grab them and get on with life. Now what happens, the customer does all their homework online. They then contact us either by email, chat, telephone, however. We have to respond to these people within 20 minutes. We have to. So if you're not responding to a customer within 20 minutes, they switch off. And that's 24/7. So we don't employ our staff, don't expect our staff to be up all night, but we have a company that responds to these people during our closing hours, and it's human beings, they're not robots. They respond, and they will say, look, we'll get someone in touch with you at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning, but at least they get a human being talking to them. And I think it's the same everywhere. If you want to buy a pair of trainers, you expect a response when you send a message. So it's the same with us. We have to, and that's changed everything. It's a 24/7 business. It's fantastic, because you can capture that customer if you do it right.
And people obviously get that urge to look at a vehicle or at the time when it's convenient to them. So you've got you've talked about how important to your business adaptability is. Can you share a time other than the pandemic when your business has had to adapt to changing circumstances?
Okay. Well, as I said before, certainly in 2008 we had to adapt quite quickly. Other times it's usually down to manufacturer changes. We may, for example, I came to start with Honda. Now, for various reasons, we decided to part company with Honda and had to find another manufacturer to deal with. So my role as a sales director or as a sales manager changes dramatically. You've got to build new relationships with another partner, and you've got to quickly get running again with that new partner. So we've had several of these occasions where we've had to change the odd partner for whatever the reason may be. So we have to adapt quite quickly that way. We're fortunate with our staff in the motor trade. We've kept our staff and held on to our staff fairly well, and I think it's because we look after them. But if you lose key people within the business, that's another problem for us in trying to adapt and make sure that the staff...
I said earlier I wanted to come back to your team, and it seems a good point to come back to now. I know investing in your team is really important to you. Can you tell us what you do to promote skills development, and do you have an example of any successes you've had?
Yeah, absolutely. Skills development, we use the manufacturer training because it's second to none. They invest thousands, if not millions of pounds into training technicians, training salespeople, training admin people, training marketers. So we make sure we're on the manufacturer programs with all these people. So as soon as a new start comes with us, they're put through a program that lasts their whole time with us, because everything is changing all the time. So they go on a program with the manufacturer and they get most of the training from the manufacturer. We do some on-site training, and that's really just trying to get the person to understand Dicksons and realise that yes, they work for Nissan, Kia, Suzuki, MG, but ultimately they work for Dicksons, and we've developed them that way. Examples of how that's been successful, my sales managers that work for me now both started as salesmen. They've developed and been promoted through the company. On the after sales side, we have after sales managers who came to the company and would work in the service department, and they've been promoted through into after sales. We've got technicians who've trained and are now foreman, if you like, within the company, and I've come up through the company and trained. So there's a number of success stories. I could bring each of them and stand them in a line and say that chap started there and he's there.
It seems an obvious question, but do you feel that investing in skills development it benefits your customers?
Absolutely, absolutely. I think the customer expects professionalism when they come into a business. They expect the staff to know what they're talking about. A lot of the training is based on customer satisfaction. So although you might go to Nissan, Kia, Suzuki, etc. for training, it could be just to teach you how to talk to customers. And that's 50% of what they learn. So it's about, of course the customers expect it, and I think we're able to give them the experience that they want when they come in. And
you find that the team members are happier because they've got that training experience behind them?
Yeah, there's nothing worse than not knowing what you're going to talk about. So there are occasions where we'll put a new start in, and I'll have a wee cringe when I listen to what's going on, but very quickly one of the senior members will come and help that person. And that's another thing about this business I love. I from my office I can hear what's going on out there, and none of them are going to let them drown. So someone has to start somewhere, and there are moments where you think, let's go and help that person out.
One of the impressive things about your business, Jim, is that as somebody's come into it and seen how you operate, it seems like you almost have an understanding of your customers as individuals. How do you go about doing that? How do you understand your customers?
Well, I think me personally, myself and Fraser Bryce, so sales director and managing director, we have offices right on the showroom floor. Doors are open 24/7, and we hear. So, for example, I've been here 25 years, Bruce, so I know a lot of my customers. But I won't sit in my office. If I can hear a voice I recognise, I'll come out and say hello, and I'll make sure that they know that I'm around and I want to chat. Some of them I started selling cars to 25 years ago, although I'm a bit lazy now. I don't go on the floor and sell cars much now, but I'll make sure they've not been forgotten. On the after sales side, it's similar. They know Linda in after sales, who runs the after sales department. Most of these customers know her name because she'll come out of the office and speak to them, and we've promoted that in the business because I think it's very, very important that people know who's running the business as well as the people on the front line who have to face the customers every day.
And across your brands come back to you time after time, don't they?
Time and time again. We're very lucky. And I think because of the brands we have, some have jumped ship within the brands, and that's good, it's great. Some have stuck with us. We've got customers that have had 30 Kias off us, for example. One customer, over the last 15, 20 years, within that family may have bought up to 30 cars, which is incredible. It's great. It's fantastic that they want to keep coming back to us.
As you said, your customers are coming back time and time again, but nowadays there's more likely to be, from customers that you don't know, a conscious consumerism approach. It's that approach is now at an all-time high. Customers are more likely to be driven by a commitment to making purchase decisions that have a positive social, economic or environmental impact. So tell us what your business does to offer a conscious consumer. Something different.
I think in the motor trade that's quite a simple answer. We've moved into electrification, and we've had no option. We would have anyway, and as a number of businesses in town they have. I think the problem up here in the Highlands was we were a bit slow in getting off the mark with that, but it's really taken off now, Drew. For example, probably a third of our demonstrators we run are electric vehicles, sole electric vehicles. Another half will be hybrid vehicles, and within 3 or 4 years we won't have an option anyway. We're going to have to run electric vehicles, and we're delighted with that. It's not a problem. The biggest challenge now is getting the points within the area that we can charge these vehicles and make them work properly for us. Also, as we develop our sites that we're developing, we'll look carefully at how we build them, etc. These buildings are older, so it's more difficult for us, but we'll make sure that when we're developing our sites...
So you're looking to adapt in order to meet the challenge of climate change?
Absolutely, and we'll do that.
So how has the drive to be more climate conscious impacted your business model? You're talking about that electrification there, but that must have been a real sea change in the way you're looking at business going, not only now, but going forward for a few years.
Yeah, and certainly for me, I've had to look very carefully into how the infrastructure works. That's the bit that I can't control. So we now, when we sell vehicles, for example, we may have a customer who lives in Caithness and they want an electric car, but it may be the wrong advice to give that particular customer because they don't realise they're going to go 120 miles and have to charge that vehicle. So we have to think environmentally, how can we still give this customer great advice? So we would discuss hybrid vehicles with them, or an option where, you know, be sensible of what you're doing. So how it's affected me is out with my business really. The business has to run along the lines of going with the manufacturer, but we have to be sensible when we talk to the customers and realise that up here in the Highlands we have to wait till we catch up in effect, and give them the proper advice that's required.
So you've been talking a lot there about changes you're making now because of the future and things that you've said, that for example with the legislation coming in to phase out new petrol and diesel, you're going to have to change things. Going forward, what advice would you give to young people looking to get into this business to do what you do now? Okay,
firstly, work hard at school. We have to count. I'm not the smartest person in the world, but counting's part of my life. By all means, early on after your school time, you don't really have to move into further education if you want to get into the motor trade, because a lot of the training is given on sites in this business. If you were to join us in any form, whether it be in the sales service side, most of the training would happen on site. Be a hard worker, be committed, and you will progress. Businesses like we see, I can already pinpoint the people within this business that are going to, if they stay with us, do very well in the business, because they're committed, they're hard working, and they're willing to learn, and they're customer focused.
So what's next for your business? I mean, we've talked about the change to electrification, but what area of your business do you think has the most growth potential?
Okay. Well, recently, if you'd asked me this a year ago, we would have said on the after-sales side. For example, the business 3-4 years ago had about 9 technicians across the board. We've now got 18 technicians, which is 18 ramps, 18 spaces we can get 5 vehicles in a day to service them. So the biggest growth definitely within the business was on that side, and we've ramped it up by 100%. In order for us to continue to grow, and we want to take small steps, we don't want to go mad. We know we would like to take on another couple of franchises within the business, but try and get them located here. That way we can invest into the electric model. There's some electric vehicles that are coming in the next 5 to 10 years that interest us, and we're going to try and get involved on that side of the business.
Do you think hydrogen will be part of the
possible?
The
yes. People we're talking to at the moment have both, and therefore we would expect that will happen. And we need to make sure we've got the facilities to cope with that. Electrification alone, we've got to get different power supplies put into this building, because it can't cope with all the charging points we're going to require. At the moment we've got about 6 charging points across the business. We really need about 30. And to get 30 charging points into a business this size, it's not a matter of just plugging them in. We've got to get the electric board to put the facility into so we can cope with the pressure of that. So there's quite a big investment there. There's investment in some buildings, etc. And if we want to get some more franchise business on board.
Yeah, Jim, you've given us a really good overview of Dicksons. Is there anything else you'd like to share with listeners about Dicksons of Inverness?
No, I just, all I can say, I'm not a part of the original family. Alistair Scrimger's family and Fraser Bryce now has a percentage of the business. But what I will say is this business has allowed me to develop my skills. I think I'm a people person. I think when I was in the RAF I was a people person, and I'm just proud of the fact that we've managed to turn the business into hopefully a friendly environment for people to come and either get servicing done or purchase vehicles from us. So I'm just proud of that fact.
So a couple of last things. How can our listeners connect with your business online or in person?
Very simple. Go to the website, Dicksons Inverness, Google it, we're there. We should be right at the top if my digital partners are doing their job correctly. And on there's various ways of getting in touch. There's phone numbers, there's chat lines, live chat lines. You're not talking to robots. There's people on the end of the line. You can email us, you can telephone us, and you can ask for any of us directly. You know, one thing we make sure is if someone phones up and says, I want to speak to one of the bosses, myself, Fraser Bryce will phone that person back because it's important we touch base with these people.
And finally, Jim, this podcast is about getting to the heart and soul of good business. What is at the heart and soul of Dicksons of Inverness?
I think the heart, the communication, the internal communication within the business, right from the top, right through the business. We're great communicators. We make sure that everyone knows very quickly what's going on, be it good or bad, they're aware of it. We don't like rumours, we don't like that kind of stuff. So I think the heart of the business is we work from the director's side, through the management structure, into the other members of staff very quickly. And I think that's the answer. We're in effect, we're one body and we communicate within that body very quickly.
Jim, thank you very much for taking part in this Digital Business News Network podcast on good business.
Pleasure, Drew. Thanks for coming.